Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most amusing things you'll hear all day. Do you want to know who will be on the witness stand for Michael Sussman when he's trying to defend himself against claims that he deliberately lied to the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Well, one of the people who will try to tell the court that actually the attorney paid by Clinton to feed and to funnel deceitful statements and lies to a government agency about Trump in order to get this government agency to investigate Trump, that person will be Michael HOROWITZ, the Inspector General. So Sussman's, this is a Washington Post, Sussman's team also said he plans to call, or Sussman's lawyer also said he plans to call Justice Department Inspector General Michael HOROWITZ, who examined the FBI's handling of investigations into Hillary Clinton and former campaign advisor to Donald Trump, and issued reports sharply critical of the Bureau's work in both cases. Are you kidding me? Horowitz was never truly cross-examined. He was never on a witness stand. It was always government officials or Congress people even on the Republican side who really didn't understand what was going on. And this was long before the Inspector General, the IG report on both the Clinton campaign, on both the Clinton email server fiasco with top secret intelligence on private servers running outside of the United States government. So that investigation and how they started Crossfire Hurricane, we didn't know a whole lot of the things that we know now. Specifically, we didn't know that Kevin Kleinsmith deliberately falsified information to a judge to continue a FISA investigation. We didn't know that Michael Sussman had lied to James Baker, and we didn't know Igor Danchenko had lied to the Bureau. We didn't know that Professor Mifsud, we didn't know that Professor Mifsud had retracted everything that he is said to have stated about George Papadopoulos. More information has exonerated and vindicated George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Michael Flynn, all of this information, in addition to everything that Peter Strzok did to set up and frame Trump. And it's like, the one person you don't want on the witness stand is the one man who knows A, everything that the FBI did wrong to set up and frame Trump, but B, you don't want him in a court of law on the witness stand to be interrogated by prosecuting attorneys who are trying to actually build a case for conspiring against Trump. So the initial claim in the IG was that he couldn't find any documentary or testimonial bias. Well, now you have documentary bias with Kevin Kleinsmith, who deliberately falsified information to deceive a judge. He was one of the first people indicted. So the IG report was years before the Durham Pro Special Counsel indicted anyone. Within those indictments, there's a whole bunch of information refuting the idea of Michael Horowitz stating, well, we didn't find any true bias. We just thought that people were doing their job for national security. Although here and there, like with Peter Strzok, one could say he was biased. Also, I don't think the IG report had information on Peter Strzok saying, we'll stop Trump. So I'm not sure about that, although I don't think. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. Hit subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, also to the Stock Market Crash channel. I have a very important segment on that channel below. It's still, the market is still collapsing, and you haven't seen anything yet, unfortunately. I don't want even my greatest enemies or adversaries, my worst enemy, to actually experience this stock market. I don't want anyone to lose their money, okay? I don't want anyone to lose money in the market. All right? Because the inflation is going to skyrocket, continue to skyrocket. Whether they say inflation actually dipped down is going to be irrelevant because I won't even believe it. But inflation is skyrocketing. We'll see if it actually descends a tiny bit. But see, that's not really going to matter because corporate profits are going to decline. That's without a doubt. But I think inflation will actually continue going up. I don't see how inflation can't go up. They're raising interest rates, but the interest rates they can't raise interest rates enough to stop inflation. And they've pumped $10 trillion into the economy through fiscal and monetary stimulus because all the wonderful experts said end economic activity 2 years ago. Now we have inflation that's running rampant. Gas prices and oil prices are through the roof. And fossil fuels are getting more expensive. Commodities are getting more expensive. There's a global contraction of GDP. We have a 1.4% contraction in GDP in this country. Global debt is at 300 plus trillion. We have more debt now than ever, and with a contracting GDP and skyrocketing inflation, while interest rates are going up. So how on earth are we not entering a recession? Which will affect corporate profits, which will then affect the stock market in terms of a cataclysmic collapse. This is a steady decline. But unfortunately, we'll see hedge funds go under. Too big to fail moment. I talked all about this in my Federalist article below in the pinned comment. Read that. That was published in October. I also talked about the Durham probe in 2019 in the Federalist. A whole bunch of articles, one of which was actually retweeted by Rush Limbaugh. But Michael Sussman's lawyer said he will call Horowitz as a witness to talk about how Sussman provided information to the Inspector General that also involved Tech Executive One, which would be interesting why they want to either throw Tech Executive One under the bus or try to exonerate him by saying that he wasn't involved in Sussman lying. I'm not exactly sure. They're trying to protect Tech Executive One because he's caught within this whole fiasco. Sussman lied to James Baker because had he told the truth to James Baker wouldn't have began an investigation of Trump. The problem, though, is that Bureau officials were in on trying to set up and fabricate Trump as well. Sussman's defense team knows this. They're actually going to help the Durham probe create a prosecution for future charges involving 18 U.S. Code 371, where numerous people conspired to set up and frame Trump with knowingly false information. Now, the prosecution team is better. The prosecution team, or witness team, is better because the defense witnesses are going to try to say, well, Sussman didn't lie. The defense witness teams are trying to say Sussman didn't lie. The defense team is going to try to say that he didn't lie, actually. The defense team is going to say that that everyone at the Bureau knew, including James Baker, that he was working for the Clinton campaign. This actually helps the prosecution eventually with 18 U.S. Code 371 or 18 U.S. Code 1031 when it comes to the Defense Department funding for researchers that the researchers were either utilizing or trying to apply for when they were obtaining surveillance information on Trump's tower, a healthcare provider, the executive office of the presidency, and his apartment. So they engaged in all this information. At the end of the day, the judge doesn't want to hear about how they set up and frame Trump, even though the entire trial is going to be about how they set up and frame Trump. The judge only wants to know if Michael Sussman lied to James Baker, the FBI legal counsel. Okay, he did. There's literally a text message saying that I'm coming on my own. I'm not coming on behalf of any client. I don't know how Michael Horowitz, who was critical, very critical of the FBI, but actually didn't really explain what happened. What happened was you had bureau officials who needed a pretext because they didn't like Trump to investigate Trump. So they relied on people like Michael Sussman to give them just anything they could utilize to investigate Clinton's direct political rival or the Democratic Party's direct political rival, an incoming president. The judge and Horowitz, Michael Horowitz, during the IG report, nobody wants to actually venture into the possibility that government officials and political operatives worked in conjunction with one another, in unison, to set up and frame Trump. They don't want that. They don't want to talk about that. They don't even think it's possible. But see, the funny thing is, he has apparently Clinton campaign officials, a New York Times journalist are going to try to testify on Sussman's behalf. They're going to get, in a legal sense, ripped to shreds by Durham's prosecution. There's no way. See, here's the thing. At the end of the day, Sussman can prove that a lot of bureau officials, even James Baker, were in on investigating Trump. The problem, however, is that there's enough information showing that he did lie within that specific instance to Baker. That text message where he says, I'm not coming on behalf of any client. In addition to that, if Sussman's team wants to throw everyone, including Comey and McCabe and Strzok, under the bus, saying, well, the FBI knew that I was a Clinton attorney, then you lay the groundwork for, if that testimony is there, then you lay the groundwork for potential perjury when you have government officials saying, well, nobody knew anything. Even Comey says, well, I didn't know the Steele dossier was purchased by a Clinton-linked law firm. Well, he's under oath as saying that. So this will serve as the basis for a perjury trap in numerous ways in the future. The Sussman trial is going to be something that I don't think Sussman's defense team realizes. What Durham is trying to do is build future prosecutions from this one trial involving a very specific crime. Okay, there's a reason that Michael Sussman didn't texted James Baker, I'm not working on behalf of any client. Okay, because he was trying to fabricate and set up or spread false information about Trump. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The fact that Michael Horowitz is part of this is really hilarious because they can now ask Horowitz, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know this while you were compiling the Inspector General report? Do you now think that there was bias? Do you now think, and then, he could go on and say, oh, well, gee, I don't know what all the issues are, and da-da-da. There's a million other ways there's classified data that Durham has that Sussman didn't have, that could be used at trial. So, anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Really hilarious development, which actually harms everyone involved with trying to set up and frame Trump. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you. I'll be back in about an hour.